Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Extra Point here on KLAA. And as always, I'm joined with my fellow colleagues, Jeremy Coleman from Indiana and Justice Gordon from New York. I'm your host, Roland Rainey, and let's get right at it with our quick snap recap of Week 3. We had the Saints versus the Patriots, 28-13. What a great rebound game for the Saints, especially starting off the season with a great win against Green Bay. Here they are against the Patriots, who are struggling, with a great win over them. What do you guys think about that win?
Well, the Saints defense really cramped down on Mac Jones, forced him into uncomfortable situations. He had that one pick six, that was kind of a deflection thing. But you just kind of saw, what all rookie quarterbacks kind of go through at this stage when they play a good defense. He got unsettled, made a few throws that were off caliber of what he's normally capable of doing. And that shows up big time when you play a team like the Saints with a veteran defense like that.
Yeah, I think a key component to the game was they got pressure on Mac Jones. They were able to get him uncomfortable and off his spot and make him a little bit inaccurate. Like Jeremy said, he had that one pick that was kind of a drop ball that ended up in a defender's hands. But I think I chalk it up to the defense mostly, and Jameis Winston had a nice bounce-back performance, but it was just a nice all-around win for the Saints.
Then you had the Raiders versus the Dolphins. What a great win for the Raiders to make them 3-0 in overtime. I tell you what, you can't argue with facts, and facts are the Raiders are putting together a pretty good offensive scheme out on the field. What do you guys think of that win?
Yeah, the Raiders always seem like they have a good game plan coming in. They do a really good job of just focusing on getting first downs. John Gruden is doing a really nice job of orchestrating that offense so they are able to go down the field. And then I got to give a shout-out to Jacoby Brissett. I did not have high expectations of him going into that game, but he led Miami back, to force overtime and actually played very well for a guy who, hasn't started a game for over a year.
Yeah, in terms of the Raiders, I feel like I'm not on the bandwagon just yet. I feel like it's been I've seen that type of thing. We've seen it over the past few years. They come out with big wins early in the year, but kind of fall off later in the year. I think it's a great win for them. I think they're off to a great start. But like Jeremy said, Jacoby Brissett, he played his butt off, played his tail off that game. He had a phenomenal overtime performance. He had a very clutch 4th and 6 where he was able to step up and hit a receiver coming over the middle for a first down. And let's talk about that 2-point conversion. He had to scramble out of the pocket, get him on the line, and he gets into the end zone to tie the game up. So I thought that was big. I thought he had a phenomenal performance, but the Raiders seem to be onto something right now. Let's see if they can continue it.
Well, that's the overall question, right? Are the Raiders frauds or not? And right now, hey, they're putting a game together. Then you had the Bengals take on the Steelers, and I think this one was a pretty big shocker for a lot of folks out there. I don't think a lot of people expected the Bengals offensively to put together a great game against that Steelers defense. The Bengals end up winning 24-10, and in the course, the main focus of that game was Big Ben. Does he still have it? Do the Steelers need to hit the panic button right now before doing anything else moving forward?
Yeah, it was very interesting. We mentioned that Steelers defense. They were missing their top 2 pass rushers, and we saw what, the Bengals offense could do when the Steelers did not have T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith out there. They couldn't generate the pressure they're used to getting. They also were missing Tyson Alou. Stephon Tuitt has yet to suit up this season. There are some that even wondering if he will at some point. So the Steelers were down some key players, but more kudos to the Cincinnati offense. Joe Burrow made some big-time throws. For all the preseason ballyhoo about Jamar Chase not being able to catch the ball, he made an incredible grab at the end of half to put the Cincinnati Bengals up 17-7 and really kind of set the tone for the rest of the day. But he really shone out. Tyler Boyd had a few good clutch catches. Joe Mixon ran the ball hard. Really just an all-good performance by the Bengals because they were able to get after big, I'm not so mobile anymore, Big Ben.
Yeah, I think in terms of the Cincinnati Bengals, this was a great bounce-back performance for Joe Burrow after the 3-interception game against the Bears. He played well. Chase played well. But from the Steelers' perspective, I think this is a all-hands-on-deck, hit-the-panic button type of thing. I think Ben Roethlisberger is someone I've been critical about for the past few years. I think the Steelers should have done a better job of, having a contingency plan for Big Ben. I think it was something like 16 behind the scrimmage throws the Steelers had for that game. So I think Big Ben is showing, some rust, not being able to throw downfield like he once used to with all those playmakers. I think the Steelers are in big, big trouble going forward. They need someone to be able to step in for Big Ben. They have no one right now. You could say Dwayne Haskins, but do we really trust Dwayne Haskins? I don't. So it's going to be a hot topic going, for them going into the offseason, and it's something to keep an eye on.
Then we have the Rams versus the Bucs. What a big game. Everyone had their eyes on that one. Look, Matthew Stafford definitely is becoming the anointed one on the West Coast against the GOAT. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. That was a great game, but they pulled off the win. Rams 34, Bucs 24. I don't think a lot of people were expecting this. Stafford is proving that he is exactly what the Rams needed to push them over the hump.
Yeah, this was a big game for Matthew Stafford. I think he performed exceptionally well. I thought the Rams performed exceptionally well as a team. They did a good job of kind of holding Tom Brady down early until, it was too late eventually. But I think this should be taken with a grain of salt. I think the Buccaneers, they're kind of hurting that cornerback right now. They're really banged up in those corners. Are a key piece to that defense. It's what Todd Bowles hangs his hats on for that defense. So with the corners banged up right now, I think everyone should cool the brakes a little bit about maybe the Rams being the team to be in the NFC. I think it still goes to Tom Brady and Tampa Bay. But it was a phenomenal performance for the Rams as a team, and I think, they're on their way to contending for that Super Bowl.
Yeah, what I think really sticks out about the Rams is they have such a balanced attack on offense. And like Roland said, Stafford's the guy that's now delivering on that, whereas in past years, Jared Goff has kind of been the inconsistency behind that offense. I mean, they're able to run the ball. You saw some big plays. Deshaun Jackson went off this week. Van Jefferson got it in the passing game a little bit. Shoot, Robert Woods is a great threat. They're not even throwing him the ball right now. That's how good that offense is. But speaking more to the Tampa Bay defense, too, you mentioned the corners are banged up, secondary banged up in general. They're not getting after the pass rusher like they did last year. So they're not making it easy on the corners either. So I think that's worth pointing out that, Tampa Bay has not been able to get the same amount of pressure that they were able to last year. And I think that's the key difference going forward this year. And the Tampa Bay defense has got to find a fix, The offense has got enough pieces in Tampa Bay. Missing Antonio Brown this past Sunday due to COVID, but, if anything, I think the defense is the unit that needs to move down in Tampa Bay.
And speaking of defense, they recently brought in Richard Sherman. Let's see what happens there. And then, of course, the big one, the granddaddy of them all, only because it's America's team, right? Monday Night Football, Cowboys versus the Eagles. That rivalry is just steep, rich in tradition. I'm talking about the Too Tall Joan era. I'm talking about the Dick Vermeil era. I mean, that is a true bona fide rivalry. Cowboys pulled that one off, 41-21. And, of course, the one thing that everyone is looking at is basically saying now the Cowboys are the team to beat. I definitely want to give a moment of pause on that because this was the Eagles. Just because the Eagles had, one great win did not make them an awesome team. They still got a lot of flaws that they got to work out. They still got to try to figure out how to slide that offensive line with the talent that Hurts is bringing them. And defensively, look, they're banged up. They got a lot of injuries. It was a great win by the Cowboys, but kind of like what Justice said earlier, you got to pump the brakes on this one. It's a win for your Cowboys, but it was not an exceptional win against an exceptional team.
Yeah, absolutely, emphatically, Dallas is not the team to beat in the NFC. We just mentioned two powerhouses in the Rams and Tampa Bay. I think they're the two teams, but as far as Dallas goes, that offense speaks for itself. They got so many playmakers on that offense. They're going to put up points. I expected them to run away with this game, which they did. Let's talk about Trayvon Diggs, though. He played phenomenally well against Devontae Smith. He locked him up pretty good, had a pick six. I think the spotlight's on Jalen Hurts right now. They have Gardner Minshew as the backup. If he puts in a few more performances like this, I think they could be calling Minshew's name, which I would personally love. I'm a fan of Minshew. But as far as Dallas, it's a great team win. They got momentum right now. Let's see if they can keep it.
I'd have to disagree a little bit with you guys on that. I mean, I don't think Dallas is the team to beat, but I think they are a team to beat. I mean, what they've been able to do on offense so far has been very impressive. You know, the two-headed running game with Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard is, you know, that's been a nice revitalized role for that offensive line, which is healthy. You know, they've got weapons in the passing game. I mean, that offense is going to be tough to stop. It doesn't matter who they're going to play. You know, they played with Tampa Bay toe for toe in the opener. You know, escaped narrow win over the Chargers 2 weeks ago. Their offense is what's going to keep them in games, and I think their defense is going to keep improving as the year goes along. And they're even going to get healthier there, too. Eventually, they're going to get to Marcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory back, too. So I disagree a little bit there. I do think Dallas is, you know, one of the probably a top 3 team, top 4 team in the NFC. So, I mean, they definitely look like they're going to run away with that division. They look like the most solid team in the NFC East. As far as the other team that they play in the NFC East, it just goes to show how far away the Philadelphia Eagles are from being a consistent winner in the NFC. Questions at quarterback, questions on the offensive line. They've got a lot to work out there still.
Well, I tell you what, you mentioned that, and I have to say this to the entire audience out there listening in. The entire NFC East is atrocious. You know, you mentioned the Eagles are far off. I would venture to make the argument that the NFC East is far off from playing legitimate football than any other, you know, division that's out there. They're absolutely atrocious. The Giants are just can't even put a good offensive scheme together. We saw what the Eagles did just the other day. And when you really look at the Redskins, oh my God, what is going on there? Okay, yeah. So when you look at those 3 awful teams, okay, yes, you can anoint the Cowboys potentially running away with the NFC East. But to your point, there's a lot of juggernauts out there in the NFC. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been your quick snap recap brought to you by R2 Sports Management here on the Extra Point. Now, one thing about last week, special teams reign supreme, and we had a lot of awesome walk-off field goal wins. You had Crosby, big time win in the last seconds against the San Francisco 49ers with a 51-yard field goal. You had Koo out in Atlanta, walk off with a 40-yard field goal. You had Carlson with the overtime field goal win, 22-yarder. And then you had the granddaddy of them all. You had Tucker, the Baltimore Ravens, setting the NFL record with a 66-yard field goal walk-off win. What do you guys have to say about this special team reign?
Well, it's nice to see that the special teams finally get some shout-out. You know, we always talk about the guys who put up the most points or whatever, and that's not normally the kickers. No, most of the time when we're talking about special teams, it's because they screwed up. You know, like Greg Zuerlein did in week 1 with that Dallas game, you know, screwed that up. You know, that's when special teams normally get missed. So I like the fact that we're putting out some positive special teams vibes here. And real quick here, I want to say something about that 66-yard field goal that barely got over. It should have never happened. There was a delay of game call that should have been blown with 7 seconds left in that game that would have put him another 5 yards back in a sure 5 yards short of hitting that field goal. So not trying to take anything away from Justin Tucker, but the refs gave him a nice little extra chance there at the end when they should not have had.
Yeah, I think in terms of sports moments that never should have happened, we could have dedicated a whole episode to that.
Things that should have not happened. I like that.
Yeah, but in terms of special teams, I mean, we all know it's a very important part of the game. It definitely gets undervalued a lot. I think Jeremy pointed that out. It's a great point. It does get undervalued, but I mean, Justin Tucker, it's the kick of the week, maybe the kick of the year, maybe the kick of the century. I mean, the longest field goal in history, 66 yards, it's off the crossbar, going right through. I mean, you can't write it much better than that. I think it was a phenomenal storyline. And he's the best kicker in the league right now, and maybe the best kicker of all time.
Now, one more special team activity. You know, there's times where we talk about a pick six, but now here we are talking about a kick six. Cardinals, what an awful decision to allow Matt Prater to go for that 68-yard field goal. Jacksonville, Agnew, look, those are the moments you live for. And he rose to the occasion. He took a huge chance coming out of the end zone, but guess what? He made it count for something.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're the last place Jags, what do you have to lose? I mean, they could be getting the number 1 overall pick again this year. Go for it. Why not? That's what he's getting paid to do. But yeah, more on that Cardinals decision. I mean, that's a 68-yard field goal. You know how hard it is to hit those? I mean, shoot, Justin Tucker barely got it from 66. That's an additional 2 yards. The other cool thing about his return is he was dodging bodies left and right. You know, this wasn't like the kick six, several years ago between Auburn and Alabama in the college game where Chris Davis just goes out wide and just outruns everyone. Jamal Agnew looked like a running back dodging people in that return.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from this play was the Arizona Cardinals' lack of ability to tackle him in space. I mean, they just gave him the sideline and pretty much were just jogging and let him run past them. So it was a poor special teams play. I think, like we said, it's a viable, component of this game. It needs to be taught better, and I bet that that coordinator was pretty hot this past Sunday.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, special team definitely reigns supreme in week 3, and it's always good to give those guys a shout out. Now, speaking of shout outs, I would say this next conversation is going to go a whole different direction, guys, because the shout outs that this individual we're getting ready to talk about has been more in the negative light, and that is that Chicago and that Cleveland game. Fields, Matt Nagy, they have been at the center of a lot of attention. Matt Nagy is currently on the hot seat. A lot of the decisions to put Fields on the field with that offensive line without a specialized game plan that highlights his talents with 9 sacks to boot on top of it, it just did not work out for them. I get it. There's times with a rookie quarterback where you're just going to have a bad game. We are already seeing it, right? Sorry, Justice, but look at Zach Wilson. He's been atrocious. You actually go out Matt Jones. He hasn't been the greatest. He's done okay, but he hasn't been great. A lot of these rookies are having issues. But when you have a talent like Fields, you need to have a special game plan. And it appears that they put him in without a legitimate game plan behind that offensive line to utilize him effectively. And currently, Matt Nagy is on a hot seat for not knowing how to manage his quarterback carousel. You already knew you had a quarterback in the waiting in Foles, a Super Bowl champion that you could have put in instead of Fields. But you went with Fields. I don't know, guys. I think Matt Nagy has a lot of reflecting to do. But if they don't win this Sunday, I got a feeling Matt Nagy days in Chicago are numbered.
Yeah, for the Chicago Bears, everyone wants to pick on Matt Nagy for the play calling and whatnot. But I have a big issue with Ryan Pace. I mean, we talk about 9 sacks of Justin Fields. I mean, that's a big deal. Ryan Pace has not invested in this offensive line. He has not done enough to help their quarterbacks, to help Justin Fields, the young rookie, who at the beginning of the preseason said the game was pretty slow, and I bet it sped up pretty quick for him.
Yeah, I'm quite sure he thinks quite differently right now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the main focus should be the offensive line, though. Ryan Pace hasn't done enough, and his seat should be as hot as Matt Nagy, if not hotter.
Well, it's funny that you guys say that, that the game should have seemed a lot faster to Justin Fields. But he was quoted after the game saying, oh, I didn't think it was all that fast. Well, that's got to be a load of crap. I'm sorry, Justin, but you got sacked 9 times, buddy. I mean, you were running for your life out there. And then one more thing, Justice, you said, people are picking on Matt Nagy. Well, it's kind of a two-way system here. Like, those guys are, having their cake and eating it too right now. Because at the beginning of the year, it was, oh, no, you need to throw Justin Fields in there right away. He's a franchise quarterback. Well, we saw how that worked on Sunday. He was not ready for his first NFL start. Sure, Matt Nagy didn't do many favors, but looking back, it looks like Matt Nagy was okay in saying that Justin Fields was not ready to start a game in the NFL.
Well, you also got to look at that offensive line coach not preparing even the offensive line. Here's what I'm getting at, ladies and gentlemen. You got Peters out there on the right side as a tackle. And one of the things about playing that position, when you're going up against a legitimate superstar DN like Myles Garrett, you want to make it easy on the tackle. But instead of making it easy on the tackle, you got basically linebacker stunts that are coming in. You got linebackers that are literally penetrating the hole at will. So as a tackle, now I have to read the linebacker and the defensive end, a superstar who I want to pay a lot of attention to. So if you put your tackles in that position, now you're putting too much pressure on them. You got to make the game simplified in those situations. And I just think they did not spend a lot of time realizing that they're going up against Myles Garrett. He's going to get in the backfield. Make it easier on your tackle. Don't have your tackle out there doing multiple reads at the line of scrimmage when he knows he has a stud beast coming at him, burrowing down nearly every play. So we'll see what this pans out for Matt Nagy. Will he be there in Chicago long term or not? Only time will tell. Now, we got a lot of teams out there, and I say a lot, only a few, but they are significant. 3-0 starts. We are getting ready to enter week 4. People are calling the Raiders a fraud, saying that their 3-0 is a fluke. Denver Broncos have come on extremely strong. Balanced offense, really sound defense. They're 3-0 also. Then you got the Carolina Panthers, 3-0. I'm swinging this out to my guys out there. 3-0, Raiders, Denver, Carolina. Surprise or expected?
With the Raiders, I'm a little surprised, but I think they're the most legitimate team out of this group. They've actually played 3 playoff teams from last year and have found a way to win games. Sorry, Miami was a wild card game, I think, or something. They might not have gotten in. But they've played 3 really good teams. Denver, they've played the Jets, the Giants, and the Jaguars. I mean, how do you not beat those teams? Those teams are horrible. So I'm not too surprised when you look back at the schedule thinking Denver had a good shot to start the year 3-0. They're not too surprising if you ask me when you look and see that their first 3 games are against 3 of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah, for me, the Raiders were a big surprise for me. I thought they had an atrocious draft. In my opinion, I didn't think they did enough. I mean, they pretty much obliterated their offensive line from last year. They traded away their all-pro center, which I thought would hinder Derek Carr, but he looks great. I think John Gruden, he was on the hot seat coming into the season. He's definitely got that team confident and rallied and fired up. So that was the biggest surprise to me. The Panthers, kind of what Jeremy said, for them, they played the Jets, the Texans, and I forgot the third team, but they had a pretty light schedule so far. Sam Darnold has looked good. I wouldn't, claim him as a reclamation project just yet. I wouldn't say he's turned the corner. He's had a pretty light schedule going forward. The Raiders were definitely my biggest surprise to me.
Yeah, and I tell you to wrap this up, I think for me, the Carolina Panthers, not necessarily knowing how Sam Darnold would be integrated into that offense, but I tell you what, he left the Jets, sorry, Justice, and he is now, don't be sorry, and he's now performing with Carolina. So, kudos to those teams. We'll see whether or not these are just surprises or maybe it's expected that these teams are going to actually put something together and special for this season. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuned in to The Extra Point here on KLAA. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, you can catch us on Facebook, The Extra Point. You can also catch us on Twitter at The Extra Point PC. On behalf of my fellow colleagues, Jeremy Justice, I'm your host, R2. Have a great week.